because
Okay.
I don't need you to do anything on your. Okay, we are live. um, because it's not public until I change it. All right, so we are live on our Saturday morning date. I am just trying to get it to pop up on my feed so I can share it. Okay, there we are. I just got to make it public.
All right. This is the first week back. I'm finally back from the cabin.
It's not. We did it last Saturday.
We did. Well, yeah, but I'm back from the cabin, so we're doing it together. So
we did it together last weekend.
Well, we did, but together in person. I'm going to go ahead and share mine as well.
So I hope everybody's having a great Saturday. So for our new listeners, we try to go live every Saturday morning around 10 a.m. Just to share some thoughts, ideas, wins, struggles that we share with each other during our morning dates, right? And so we just go live every Saturday to talk about kind of our lesson of the week, what we learned, some experiences, and just to kind of share with you guys, take you guys along our journey. And so we're very unscripted, open, honest. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and we answer questions from everything about. I just posted in my social media page that my transformation from 3 years ago. Like I've almost lost 65 pounds.
Yeah.
And how I've done that to answering questions about our kids. We homeschool one of our kids. The other one goes to high school. To questions about our marriage and entrepreneurism and working with your spouse. When you have one visionary and one entrepreneur, or one entrepreneur, one entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So we're a very, very open book when it comes to our life. I've spent a tremendous amount of money, struggle, and pain to learn the lessons that I have learned. But what do we want to talk about today?
So what we put down here was the what did I say? It was the system, the standard, the hustle. Yeah. So this is kind of a little bit of a controversial topic, I think, for some.
We're a controversial group of people here.
Yeah. But the basis of the topic was around really kind of when there's certain expectations or things set in life where you got to kind of, you can either go one of two ways. One is you can work with the system being, the traditional.
And this system could be anything.
Yeah.
Public school, how you grew up, like, the system is anything.
Yeah.
It's not one specific thing.
Yeah. But in this case, it was more around just kind of what's already kind of been defined in culture, defined in civilization, whatever. Like for school or for work, it's to go to the job. It's to just kind of follow the certain path. That's what we consider the system. And then the standard being kind of what people expect of you, not necessarily what you expect of yourself, but what you perceive or what
kind of like keeping up with the Joneses.
It is keeping up with the Joneses. So it's what you think other people expect of you is the standard. And then the hustle is everything outside of that, meaning really kind of the standard that you hold yourself to, different from the standard that we talked about.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a loaded topic, but
well, we got into the topic because a friend wanted to homeschool their daughter, right? Their child. And one of the spouses was for it and one was against it.
Yeah.
And that one spouse that was against it comes from the system, right? It's all they know. Their parents were successful, went to college. Their parents are doctors. No, you have to stay in school. It's traditional. That's the only system they know.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but that's all they know. Where the other spouse was more about the hustle right now,
mm-hmm.
and wanted to think outside the box and break those standards.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tricky because, in thinking through it, you kind of live your life, or you go through your life and you kind of start to build up whatever it is that you have in life. So either it's building up your career, it's building up the way that you live, it's building up, the things that you achieve in life, which is either a car, a house, other things like that. It's building up a foundation for your kids and school. And so it kind of, the standard and the system itself that you're living in, I think grows and evolves over time, which then becomes even more difficult because you're kind of building a foundation yourself, but you don't realize that you're actually building a wall around you as well, with your life. So over time, you got to be I think you got to notice and recognize that it's there if you're trying to, again, start to introduce a hustle or the hustle.
Mm-hmm. And I think the hustle is so underrated. Everybody's looking for the easy button, the 4-hour work week. Dude, it's just hustle. And then it's a different hustle and you adjust, but it's still a hustle.
Yeah.
You delegate, you offset, but you're still hustling in a different way. But anyways, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. See, Faith is on here watching.
Yeah, I said, good morning, Faith. So, I think and as entrepreneurs, we build up that wall too, right? We conform to a standard that we think or how we should be running our businesses. So it goes both ways versus like, say, someone that is so ingrained into the system, right? Where, the thing is you have to go to school, you have to make good grades, you have to go to college, and that's the only way to be successful. That's the system we're talking about in one aspect, but there's another side of an entrepreneur that this is how you do business and this is the only way and you have to do it this way. It's bullcrap.
Yeah. And real quick, resetting the system. And I say the system, it could be any type of system, and systems are great because they provide consistency and alignment or expectations
and security.
Yeah. So it kind of helps guide you along and makes things, ideally a system is there to make things easier.
But it also puts you in a box.
And that's the fallback. That's the downfall of that. So there's pros and cons. And so in this example, the systems being things in your daily life, systems being school, systems being traditional work, systems being other things that revolve around your life. I don't want to get too political or anything like that, but there's other things out there in terms of systems. Like, let's say you have your state systems, your government systems, your local systems, and even your own community systems, which then kind of comes into the standard. There's things that have been built up that make things a little bit more consistent and easier in your life, but tend to be harder to get out of if you've built up those systems and those standards around you.
And you have to meet, and you're trying to keep up with those standards. That's why they're hard to get out of.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, for me, that was difficult. And then, the next topic of, how does the hustle come into that when you have two people who, let's say spouses or people sharing their lives together or whatever, again, somebody who's closely connected. If you have somebody who is trying to initiate or start or work the hustle, what do you expect to happen with the system and the standard that was already set? Like, how do you navigate around that if somebody is still using the system and the standard, and then you have another person who is working the hustle?
Because the hustle it's risk, right? It's risk, it's reward. It's a different mindset, but you sometimes can't keep up with the standard, or you could put it all on the line, or you could win, you can lose, and we all win and lose with that hustle. But it makes someone who lives in that system so uncomfortable, right? That they don't understand the hustle, the entrepreneur, the hustle, the trying things, the working till midnight. And I think sometimes that's why a lot of marriages, to be honest, are disaligned or misaligned. Is you might have one person in the relationship, like that's the entrepreneur, and they're the hustle, right? They work, they answer phone calls. I mean, I remember answering phone calls from customers at 9:00 at night. And the other day I called a Woot Recruit customer because they were having a really bad day, and it was 7 o'clock at night. And I just felt, hey, I want to reach out to this person. Those are the things that we do. It's the hustle. It's working on the weekends. But when you have the other side of that, the other spouse is working in the system. They grew up, with just following these things. It's part of their family. Their parents think that way. They think that way. I just have to follow this structure, and these are the things I'm supposed to do. It misaligns sometimes. And I think that's why we hear a lot of entrepreneurs who struggle with that partner or spouse, that they don't understand the hustle. They don't understand it because that other person is living in the system.
Because there's been so much dependency that's been built up around the system. And again, the consistency and the stability that comes from a system.
Yeah, people that live in the system, their money, their pay is guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed. They're never worrying about, like, are they going to make payroll?
As long as they follow the rules of the system.
You know, their money is guaranteed. They live in a different mindset, and it's very like, you know, repetitive, which is fine. But their income is kind of guaranteed. Where when you're in the hustle, that's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right. It rides on your hustle and your ability.
Yeah.
But the standard is in the middle.
Yeah.
Right. And it's this person is trying to keep up with this standard. But for me, if I'm in hustle mode and you want me to keep up with the standard, I have to go backwards.
Or there's friction that builds
up. Or there's
up.
friction.
And there's controversy. There's butting heads. I wanted to give, by the way, I see Teresa McConnell's on here.
Good morning.
I wanted to give, if everybody has ever read the book, The Republic, Plato.
That's beyond my
I know.
vocabulary. That's beyond my educational level right there.
There is the allegory of the cave. It's this story about a theoretical person who, again, if they've grown up and lived all their life inside of a cave, and let's just pretend that the only thing that they're allowed to do is to stare at a wall, to stare at the wall of the cave. And behind them is a fire. And that fire is casting a shadow behind them and projecting it onto that wall that they're only allowed to look at. And so if in this cave, this person who's grown up all their life sees this shadow and sees the reflection and casting onto this wall, every time that they move, the shadow moves with them. And again, understanding there's no education around this. They don't know, again, they've never been trained. They've never been educated. There's been no standard or fundamental that they've lived off of separate from that. If all of their life, all of they've ever seen is the shadow cast on the wall of the cave, and then you were to take them and place them outside in the sunlight outside of the cave to see everything else, what would their reaction be? And I think it came down to that there'd be just absolute shock and denial that this is not reality.
Well, everything they know to be true is no longer true.
Right. Because again, they found this shadow as real. Like to them, that was life. That was the person, that was the thing. And so to take them out of that standard, out of that system of knowing, again, the concept of what you see is all there is, then it really just shatters their existence. It's really hard for them to break down what they know as truth to start to accept something else.
Well, it's that saying, you know, a product of your environment. It was their environment. They're a product of that environment. It's all they know. Teresa said it's fear.
Yeah.
And so this is a great topic too with, you know, employees when they come from different systems or living in different ways or growing up in a different way or with certain systems around them.
And there could be cultural systems too.
Well, yeah, systems are just like those consistent things that we use in our day-to-day that become a system, right? It's not the system.
Yeah.
And when maybe they're used to working for certain types of companies or bosses, and then they come into your company and all of a sudden they don't know how to act and they are skeptical of everything. And it's because that's all they know, right?
Yeah.
It's all they know. And they're constantly like waiting for something to happen or watching their back, but it's all they know because it goes back to, you know, the way that, you know, a product of your environment.
Yeah. The system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not the system.
I know.
A system.
A system. And we've even had that in Recruit. We've had a lot of skepticism through periods of time.
Yes.
Like really.
With our employees or our customers or both? Both.
No, but more so like just opening up that internally, like with our own employees.
Oh yeah, I'm an open book with the employees and our customers, but like, with the employees, I ask for help. I tell them I don't know what I'm doing. Yesterday, I told them we're all going to be gone. We're going to be out of the office for the quarterly next week. I trust everyone is a high functioning adult and that they can answer their own questions. And if they can't, just go ask ChatGPT or make it up, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
and they're like, we can't believe you just said that.
Yeah.
But it's shattering that, it's just that total transparency with my employees. They're like, they've never worked for a person like me. Like, they've seen me laugh. They've seen me cry. They've seen me look amazing, and they've seen me look absolutely horrible, because I am an open book for them and our customers, and the same thing with the Organize It employees and customers as well. And it's just so weird because they're not used to that. It's different. It's the hustle. They're seeing the hustle from someone who isn't just trying to grow themselves, but trying to grow everyone around them, because in turn, it's going to grow themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Teresa said, overheard my employees saying that they thought the ad and the job for Level Up Cleaning was a scam. Exactly.
Yeah.
They think it's a scam because they're like, man, just people actually exist. But here's the thing, Teresa, they were in like that system, right? Well, that's all they knew. It was like the Groundhog's Day. It was the same thing over and over and over. And they were brave enough to break out of that system and try something different. Like it's out of what that usual is, or that familiarity is. And so they risked it, right? And it's different for people, our employees, our customers, than it is, because we're not operating in that system. We're creating our own system.
Yeah. And I think that, like, for somebody who, again, with the whole concept of fear and the unknown and absolute truth, if anybody ever knows is the shadow on the wall, and that example of like what they see is all there is, then, and I'm thinking through this myself, is how do you get around helping somebody, especially when you're talking about other people who have other struggles and you're like, they're not listening to me. They're not listening to me. You can't just take them from the cave and place them outside and say, look up, that's the sun. This is the truth. You can't just do that. I think what you have to do is find connections, find similarities from what they already know as truth, and start to add other elements to it. So maybe it's not just the shadow, maybe it's not just the wall. If you notice, every time you move your hand, it also reflects back the same thing. So it's finding similarities, it's connecting where they're at, like you said, empathy. That's where that's at. And it's a work in progress.
I want to tell a little story about system, living in the system. So I spent a tremendous amount of money hiring really high level people to help me, because I'm not going to lie, I don't know a lot. I am not formally educated, but I know the hustle. I know how to work hard. My dad taught me how to work hard, work with my hands. As I've gotten older, I've learned how to work with my brain a little bit more than my hands. But I've spent a lot of money hiring really, really high level, great people. But what they did was all they knew, because they came from such strong systems. Like they came from IBM, they came from Microsoft, like they came from franchises. They came from such strong ingrained like systems, right? A system can be any conglomeration of things. That they were trying to make me conform to the only system they knew. And I will say it hurt me. It hurt our culture. It hurt our business. And finally, I said, you know what? I'm tired of trying to run my business the way everyone keeps telling me how to do it.
Yeah.
Like finally, I was like, I'm done. I'm doing it the way I want to do. I'm not following like this system because that's how this app did it, or that's how, certain businesses do it. And that's how you're supposed to do it. Because it got to a point to where you're going to laugh at me. Like I was following it and it hurt our marketing. It hurt our culture. It hurt our culture so bad. And one of the companies that like one of the employees asked if I had sold the company because they hadn't seen me in a while. And I said, oh my God, no, like we didn't sell the company, but they were telling me that I needed to be like, I needed to do this and I needed to be more back here and I needed to do that. And I needed to lead through my leaders and my visionary. And I'm like, you know what? I am tired of people saying this is the system. This is how you run a business. This is the only way to do it. And that's a lie. And I started to do it the way I wanted to do it. And the culture has changed. Are we a traditional business? Absolutely not. Are we for every customer? Even probably more not, because we don't follow like certain things. We're a little outside the box. And I just got tired of it. I told Chris, I said, I'm done. I'm done listening to these people who came from giant companies, right? And we get taught this all the time as business owners. Oh, I made this operating system for blah, blah, blah. And my question is, have you ever hired a freaking cleaner? No, you haven't. So you're not going to teach me how to run my cleaning business. Or like, have you ever built a software? Like, no, you haven't. So I'm not going to listen to you either until you've done what I've done, or I'm doing what I'm doing. But I tried to follow these people because I thought, one, they costed a lot of money. So they must know what they're talking about. Right. And it hurt. It slowed our growth. It dampened our culture because they weren't used to the type of business that we were. They were used to these giant businesses that required it to run on a very, very structured system, but that was not dependent on any one person, which I get when you're IBM or Microsoft. Yeah. But not when you're a small business.
Yeah. So
I broke the system and I went back to hustle, and I'm creating a new standard.
Yeah.
And so we have a Samaria. Hey, Samaria. And how do I say? Adele. How do you say
Adali?
Adali? I don't know. But so Samaria said, I'm going back to basics. Absolutely. You know, me and Paul did this great presentation. My homie Paul, I talk to his wife all the time. I haven't talked to Paul in a little while, but we're still friends. But me and Paul did this great presentation, and it's on the bottlenecks of growth. And it's when we reach certain growth bottlenecks, we have to relook at our systems. We have to look at our like entire company. And so Samaria, you're going back to basics, and it was bottlenecks at like $500,000, 750,000, $1 million, 1.5, 2, and then 3 and beyond. And so we did a presentation on that for Martha at QDS a few years ago. And it was so true. I wrote the one up to, I think, $1.5 million. Paul did 2 and beyond. But the presentation was great because it said, once we reach 1 million, we actually have to simplify. We've overcomplicated. We're trying to follow too many other people's systems that maybe have never even done this. And so I like that you're trying to take it back to basics, and you want to run your company your way. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why we do it. I think I've spent like 180, 35, like maybe $250,000 in consulting that, no, I forgot about the EOS implementer.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
For Organize It.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go, oh my gosh, I've spent a lot of money making lots of mistakes. At least I'm going to say 250,000 to 300,000 trying to follow someone else's system. And I said, no, I'm going to, because it was the standard that the world wants, the standard we're supposed to have as entrepreneurs and business owners.
I want to make a quick note here is that not just a single person's system, but again, each mistake was a different system that you were trying to implement separately.
Yes. Each mistake was a different system I was trying to implement at a different time separately. You know, I hired a fractional CMO for one of the businesses, and they said, you cannot be the face of the company. The company has to stand on its own. And I'm like, hey, I paid this lady lots of money. She's probably right. What do I know? And we started to take my face off the company. I started to do less things. And that's when they were like, did she sell the company? Is she still here? Does she own it? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, and now we read from like Gary Vee and the Dan Martells of the world that your company needs a face, and it is the face, whether you want it to be or not, internally and externally.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, why did I take that advice? Maybe I was desperate. I don't know. I took it blindly. And it was not great advice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the system that she worked in
Mhm.
didn't have faces of companies. It was a different thing, a different perspective. When you talk about like companies that don't have that forefront, that
Yeah,
face.
and in a time like now where people need more trust and more value before they purchase something, that's like honestly the worst piece of advice you could give someone right now when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, it's evolving.
Yeah, it's evolving. And if you haven't read Gary Vee's new book, the day trading, it's right there. It's
Day
that
trading
purple one.
attention.
Day trading attention.
Yeah.
He says that the big brands, day trading attention, yeah.
Yeah.
The big brands will not be able to stand on their own because people want to connect with the people they're buying from, and they don't have faces, and small businesses do. It's a really good book if you're looking to increase your social media presence. But that's an example of me trying to follow the system so that I could achieve the standard in business, right? And I just said, you know what? This all is horrible. Our numbers declined, our culture dampened, and I said, I'm done. I'm not following this. I'm creating my own system. Guess what? There's a book coming out on it. And so I'm creating my own system or standard of how a business should run, right? How do we look? How do we act? A great thing is, I heard you told me that this person said, I don't mix business with personal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no such thing as not mixing business with personal. It doesn't exist if you're an entrepreneur. You can try to time manage all you want. Time management doesn't even exist. It's managing energy and deep focus. It's not time management.
Mm-hmm.
I think time management is like kindergartner.
Right.
And deep focus and managing energy is like college level, right?
Yeah.
We learn that. It's the basics, but it's actually what everyone's teaching.
Yeah.
Off topic. But there's no such thing as not mixing personal with business. And as we see social media grow and that standard, right? That was the system and the standard that COM expected of me. Like, you can't talk about certain things. Every single graphic has to have the same color and same font. And even though it's the 4th of July, you can't use red, white, and blue colors. And I'm like, are you crazy?
Yeah. And so it's what I'm getting at here is every system has a set of truths, or every system has things that need to be true for it to work. And so I want to make mention of that. Like, that system, let's say with the CMO example, could have worked if there were certain truths.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that your world, your life, your hustle didn't really work with that system, then it would just fall apart and it would break, or there'd be conflict. Even with like personal, there's a set of truths that you need to abide by for the system to run properly. And if you have couples, two people with different systems, how do you make those truths? How do you break down those barriers, or how do you figure out those truths or create alignment when you have two different systems?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would love to know the question.
I have some ideas. I have some ideas on it, but we're using system, standard, and hustle as metaphors, guys. Like, we're using them to say, like, the system is it's the only thing you know, or it's what you think you know, or it's what you think it's supposed to work like, right? Or it's what we're paying all these consultants and coaches to teach us. But my first question is like, okay, well, have you ever hired a cleaning technician? So no, then you can't teach me much. You can teach me a little bit, but I'm not going to follow your system. And I think sometimes because we pay money, and I love EOS, but I want to push back. Like, I paid for an implementer, and just because they said this is the system and this works, I don't think there's one system that works for every company or for every person. And so we're using the system just as that metaphor of it's kind of that structure. It's the only thing you know. And even though you think you don't have structure, you have structure all around you because you're doing the same habits over and over and over. Whether you're an employee, an entrepreneur, an entrepreneur, that's your system, right? It's what time you wake up. It's what time you go to bed. It's when you eat. It's how you work. It's your habits. That's your system. It's also, we're a product of that. It came from our environment. We learned it from our parents and how we grew up and where we grew up.
Social programming.
It's social programming. And so that's the system that we're talking about, whether you're talking about public school, 9-to-5 work, working for like the government or a teacher.
Again, nothing is necessarily bad. It's just there's a different set of truths for every system.
It's a different set of truths. And that's the system that we're talking about. So it's really a metaphor to how you live your life. We're stuck in a system and we got to break through it, but we follow it because it's what we were told. It's how we're supposed to grow up so that we can achieve the standard. I don't know about any of you guys, but I do not desire to achieve the standard.
Yeah.
I have no desire whatsoever
to achieve the standard that was set on me at the beginning.
No, none. The standard scares me because that's just normal. And I don't want to be normal.
Yeah.
If anyone who knows me, you know I'm not normal. But and I don't want to achieve that. And so that's why I sometimes, like Samaria, going back to basics, 100%. I listen to way too many people, made way too many mistakes. Could have bought me like 3 Teslas by now. But I didn't know what I didn't know, but I was at least willing to break it, to try it and break it when I said, you know what, this is not for me. I'm gonna go back to the hustle for a little bit.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Teresa. Says, love you guys. Going for a Saturday walk date morning, whatever you
with her husband.
Walk date with her husband. Yeah.
Awesome. Actually, a few people have private messaged me that they are walking with their husbands because of me and Chris.
Yeah.
So Chris, you should be proud.
I am. And I also just want to say that I always love watching, seeing in Teresa's feed, always spending time with the kids and making that intentional time for family. I know that you were, I think it was pickleball, if I'm not mistaken, the other day. Just great to see, again, intentionality when you're talking about that part of life.
Yep. So anything else? We've been on for 30 minutes. We need to wrap this up. But, the system, again, we're all stuck in a system, right? It's our habits, our daily habits, from what time we wake up, go to sleep, eat, how we work. It's our daily habits create a system around us. And it's because we're trying to achieve the standard that we think we're supposed to achieve, right?
Yeah.
And my other question is, what are you doing to your children? What system are we putting them in or exposing them to? And what standard are we trying to impose on them?
Yeah.
Right. And do they know even what hustle is?
It's a dangerous topic.
It is. Austin got the taste of money. And so now Austin does odd jobs for us because he wants money. He's learned the hustle because when there's hustle behind it, there's a reward. Sometimes it's monetary and sometimes it's not. But he's learning the hustle. Yaya, on the other hand, I'm sorry, but she's a lazy little girl. She has not learned the hustle yet. She's sick. She's got some time. But Austin's learned that hustle. So, think about this with your children, with your spouse, with your partner, with your employees, even with your friends. What system have they kind of put in their life to build these walls, or what standard are they trying to achieve? Right.
And that might give you some clues on how to, again, if they're close to you or connected to you. Or
Faith, you're right. She sells cookies. She's a hustler when it's cookie season.
Yeah, that's great. But it might give you some clues, understanding what system they're living in or working in, to know what truths to expect from that, or to kind of start to educate around if you're, again, closely working with somebody who's working through a different system than you are currently.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely transparent in this statement, and I'm not political at all. I can't be political, but I absolutely hate the system, the structure that Austin is being put through right now in public high school. It's just not for me. And he wants to go to public high school. He was homeschooled, and he's choosing to go to public high school on his own choice. I keep trying to get him to drop out and go back to virtual or go to homeschool. But he wants to play college basketball. And so he feels that's the best place for him to be to pursue that. But meanwhile, it's like the things he's exposed to, the routines, he's up at 4:30 in the morning, like the homework all night. It's like, oh, there's no teachers. Like, I'm sitting in school for 7 hours doing nothing, he said, because there's no teachers.
Yeah.
That was last year. I don't know about this year so far. And just that, I'm not really a fan of that, and how they're trying to create a system, a thought process around, you have to go to school, you have to go to college to be successful.
Yeah.
And I think that isn't really true anymore, because options are exponential right now when it comes to that. And this is something I want to share with everybody the other day. We wonder why people no-show jobs. They quit jobs. We wonder why recruiting is so hard in business right now. Like, it changed during COVID, but it also changed with technology. And this goes back to a certain type of system that was in the world. So if you were a crummy business or boss, people didn't have as many options as they have now. But because the world has changed so much over the last years, the options for jobs and job finding is exponential.
Yeah.
Right? There's a million more options for jobs nowadays than there used to be. The options are exponential.
Yeah.
It used to just be, I either had to go to college or I had to go to a 9-to-5 job. But now with social media and influencers and like internship and remote, it's just so exponential that there's so many more options. So if you are a crummy job or boss or manager, they don't have to stay.
Yeah.
Right? They can leave. And then the second reason why I think it's also super hard is that if you are not the greatest business or boss, it's kind of like the old-timey telegraph, right? Where I had to write a telegraph and I sent it on the horse and they delivered it to the next town, but it took like days or weeks for that message to get out. But nowadays, if you're that person, it's literally lightning speed.
Yeah.
People can say it on social media. They can leave you reviews. It's like a chain of just telegraphs that like are at lightning speed and that never stops. So I think, the systems when it comes to that have changed on, you really can't be a crummy business or boss anymore because of, one, exponential opportunities.
Yep.
And two, the telegraph system has changed.
So I wouldn't say that the system has changed, but the truths, like what needs to be true in that system for it to work, has changed. Yep. And so that's where things are starting to break.
Yeah. And so I think that's what's making like recruiting and culture and business is so important, because of those are two big driving factors of why people either don't, like why recruiting's hard or why retention of employees is hard.
Yeah.
Is the old days of like, I'm just stuck here, I'm going to stay here, are over if you're not a really great functioning organization with good pay and great culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a whole different topic, but it still goes along with the systems. But it is the weekend, and Faith, you are right. Yaya is a cookie hustler. And no, her mom and dad didn't deliver all the cookies. She would stand outside of Publix for 6 hours shifts?
There was a 2-hour shift, a 4-hour shift, and a 6-hour.
A 6-hour shift, and sell cookies to people. And that little girl would go up to everybody and she wouldn't leave them alone because they're like, oh, I don't have cash. And she's like, no problem. I have Cash App and Zelle and PayPal. And they couldn't get away from her.
And like, oh no, I'm not, I'm not hungry. Oh, well, you can buy them for somebody else.
Yeah. She's way better salesperson than I am. But yes, Faith, you are right. She does sell cookies. And she's excited for cookie season. So all our friends, get ready for Yaya's cookie season because it's starting soon. I don't know when it starts. I think in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Of the new year. So in a couple more months.
Yep.
But I hope you guys have a great weekend. Any last parting words, Chris?
No, just know what system you're working in and know what truths need to be there for it to work right for you. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's, for me, it's just being aware. Is this system, this process, these habits, this advice, this consulting, all of it, is it right for me? Right? Me and my business. Or is it just what people are telling me to do? I got so tired of people telling me how I should run my business, that I fired all of them. So I hope you guys have a great weekend.
Thanks.